Welcome back. Now we're going to do this next section, so let's go through the instructions. Find the circumference of each circle, and we've gotten some very specific instructions. So instead of using the pi button, here's the pi button, they'd like me to actually use an approximation technique. So I'm going to specifically use 3.14 instead of the pi. So I'm actually doing something less accurate, but this would be useful maybe in the field when you're working. And you feel okay with getting an answer close enough. And now they're also asking me to round to the 10th, and they've reminded us the formula that the circumference is equal to 2 pi r. Okay, so again, I got to show my work on another piece of paper or the back, and I don't even know if it would fit on the back, but let's do it. So what would happen if my radius was in fact 2 yards? Okay, so over here on my other piece of paper, I'd like to talk about what pi is. So if I got pi by himself on one side, okay, if I divide it, that would be, I take my formula, and if I divide it by 2 on both sides, I get pi times the radius, okay? Now, if I really wanted to try to figure out, well, what does pi mean? I could divide both sides by r, and that would go away. And maybe this could help me think about radius times 2. Okay, so maybe this could help think about, well, where did pi come from? In fact, pi is a number we discovered. It's a number, a constant, and it is technically the ratio of the circumference. So if I go out and measure a tree, it's the ratio that whatever the circumference of that tree is, that it creates with its diameter. And again, we know that diameter is just 2 times the radius. So that's by definition what pi actually is. And again, in this example, we're going to use 3.14 as an approximation for that number, even though we know that it's a number that goes on and on and on. It actually keeps going even off of my calculator. Okay. So using that concept, I'm going to find the circumference of 7. So the circumference of something that has a radius of 2 yards would be 2 times pi times the radius. And so the circumference is 2 times 3.14 times 2. Okay, so if your radius is in yards, I think of my tree here, if this is 2 yards, then if I measured all the way around my tree, that would be 12.6 yards, and that would be in yards, not yards squared. So length, distance is in 1 dimension. Okay, let's look at 8. Radius is 8 inches. Okay, so same formula, circumference is 2 pi radius. And we're going to round to the nearest tenth. Question 9 says the radius is 7 feet. Ooh, this is a tricky round one. So that would be, if I round, the 6 tells me to round this up, but it's like rounding up the number 39. It would round to 40. Or if I rounded up the number 439, it would round up to 440. So that's rounded, and my units are feet. So here I have to run 3 up to a 4, 75.4 kilometers. They changed this up. Now they gave me the diameter of 14 miles. So I usually just write this, and again, picturing my picture, if the whole thing is 14, that's got to be 7 and 7. So my radius is 7 miles. All right, now back to the same formula. Circumference equals 2 pi r. 2 times 3.14, because that's how they asked me to plug that number in, and my radius is 7. Now there's more than one way to do this. If you have a couple different ways, that's totally cool. This would just be one way to do it. And here we go again. I got to round here to 44.0 miles. Now let's think about this for a minute. Back in question 9, the radius was 7. Here the diameter is 14. And so that should make sense that we get the same answer. Now this one was in feet and this one's in miles. But again, that makes sense. Now some kids use this formula though. There's more than one formula for circumference because we recognize that 2 times r is the diameter. So here's another formula, pi times the diameter. And so both of these are correct formulas. Okay. So now let's take a look at question 12. The diameter is 6 meters. So that would make the radius 3 meters. Again, if all the way across was 6, this would be 3 plus 3. Radius of 3. So the circumference is equal to 2 pi r, 2 times 3.14, times the radius of 3. So this would mean the radius is 2 meters. If the diameter is 4, that's 2 plus 2, radius 2. Now notice this keeps popping up. I go back to the diameter because see how 2 times 6 is the diameter, 2 times 2 is the diameter. So it's in the formula there, whether you know it or not, that either of those formulas would work up here at the top. Okay, so 21.4 would be a radius of 10.7 feet. Okay. I'm running out of room. I'm gonna go to the other again. Just if you run out of room, just put it on another piece of paper. If you run out of room on the back, put it on another piece of paper. Now they changed it. They said the area is 237.8 yards squared. So area is a two-dimensional thing. So they're telling you the area of this, and now working backwards, you need to figure out the circumference of that circle. That's pretty cool. So we need the formula for area, and we know the formula for area is pi r squared. And then we also know that the area is equal to this. So using just substitution, we can say that 237.8 has to equal pi radius squared. Okay, so if you divide by pi, our radius would equal, those would cancel out, our radius squared would equal 237.8 divide by pi. And we've been told to use the number 3.14. Okay, so, but that's not going to tell me my radius. It's going to tell me my radius squared. So I'm going to square root both sides, and so this is what my radius is equal to. Okay. Now, how's that going to help me find my circumference? Well, my circumference is 2 pi r. So my circumference is 2 times pi, which they told us to use that. And then here's my big old r, my big old yucky number. Okay. So really, that's just a bear to type in a calculator, but that should be my circumference. So kind of, let's doing parenthesis PEMDAS. You do the parenthesis stuff first, and this is actually a parenthesis as well. Let's do that part inside there first. So that'd be 237.8 divided by 3.14, enter, and take the square root. Okay, so that's all this yucky stuff. And I'm not going to round till the end, but I am going to write down what that number represents. And then I need to multiply by 3.14 and the number 2. So multiply by 3.14 and the number 2, and I get a circumference of 54.64, or excuse me, 54.651, and if I rounded that to the 10th, I'd get that. And my answer was this was in yards squared, so my circumference has to be in yards. Check out the next video.